Dan here from DJ's Painting. I'd like to let you know a little bit more about what we can do for you. There are a lot of different types of paint out there. There's oil-based, there's water-based, there's acrylics, there's two-component epoxies, there's two-component urethanes. And almost all of these different types of paints are made by different manufacturers. Say, for instance, Benjamin Moore, Sherwin-Williams, PPG, Behr. Now, people often get confused as to the quality of paint as to the manufacturer. So, for instance, people think that if I get a paint from Sherwin-Williams, it's better than Benjamin Moore or vice versa. And there's a lot of information out there about this. You can get it directly from Consumer Reports, who does essentially a very good job of drilling down the best homeowner type paints, things that you would use for a house or a deck, for instance. There's really not a lot of good objective information out there to show one brand versus another in an industrial type setting. What we like to do is actually test the different types of paints. And I'd like to get into a little bit about the different types of paint as opposed to the brands. So for instance, we do a lot of tests in places, one of which people in Millville will be familiar with, Jim's Lunch. We do painting in there often for free for them, kind of in exchange for food. But we go in and I'll paint the front door using different paints every couple of years. I'll do the paint that's the high traffic areas, the benches in there, the doors to the restrooms. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of people that use those doors and sit in those benches every week. And you can really tell what holds up better here, what holds up better there, what holds up against the chemicals that they use to clean up by the grill. So there's a lot that goes into it. So for instance, if you're going to paint a metal door, if you paint a metal door, the easiest way to do it is with a DTM or direct to metal acrylic. Now DTM acrylic is designed specifically to get a little bit harder than traditional house paint. It bonds better to the surface and it's a little bit more durable since it's harder. A little more scuff resistant, it holds up to chemicals a little bit better. You need something a little bit tougher than that. Then you go to an alkyd oil base. Now an alkyd oil based paint takes longer to dry, but it bonds better to that metal surface. Also, it will block a lot of the rust. So if rust tries to come back through, you'll stop that rust, you stop the moisture from dampening the metal, where the acrylic will allow a little bit of moisture to pass through and that rust will eventually come back. And it's also a little bit more scuff resistant because it's even harder than a DTM. Problem is, it's not very UV stable, meaning the sun's UV rays break that coating down and it will start to chalk and get a little bit dull and fade. If it's a bright color, it could fade out in 6 months if it's a bright red and it's on a southern exposure and it's getting a lot of sun. So in those situations, we step it up a notch further to a aliphatic two-component urethane. So you put a two-part urethane, it's got great UV resistance. Think your automotive paint. It's going to hold up for a decade, maybe more, depending on how much UV rays it gets. It's extremely scuff resistant, just like the oil base as soon as it's cured and hasn't had a chance to age. It's a great product. And there are other things that we can do to make that last longer, make that a little bit more durable by using an epoxy primer with a urethane over it, or an epoxy primer with some of the other things over it. I'll get into talking about primers in some of the other video segments. Anyway, that's it for today. I hope that was helpful. Give us a call. We'll take care of your job. 856-455-5257. Or visit us on the web.